Good morning, everybody. And welcome to Rockport, Massachusetts on this fine fall day. My name is James Atkinson, and I am a scientist and engineer who has been hunting informants, spies, and snitches for close to 50 years now. Once again, welcome to the broadcast where we talk about hunting spies, neutralizing snitches, stopping the invasion of privacy, and shutting down espionage no matter who the spy is. We are broadcasting to the known world. This can best be categorized as foreign collection methods, indicators, and countermeasures. This morning's video is all part of my 18-part series on TSCM and a modern eavesdropping threat, which you will find to contain information not found anywhere else on Earth. It is all free, and it is in 18 parts for your listening and viewing enjoyment. But sit down and listen to all 18 parts, and be advised, some of it is going to really get you angry, some of it's going to make you really think, and some of it is going to knock your socks off. So prepare to have your socks knocked off. This section is entitled The Objectives of Any TSCM Program or Service, and we're going to get into an arcane part of our profession, but it's an integral part. And if you're a security director, if you're chairman of the board, CEO, president, or a board member, you want to listen and study every part of this particular presentation, because this very short presentation can actually save your company from destruction, and it can save your company billions of dollars a month. Billions of dollars a month. So, listen to this slowly, take notes, post questions. This is extraordinarily valuable, and this next few minutes in which I will be addressing you is some of the most delicate of information, and the information that you're getting here for free you would otherwise pay $50,000 to $100,000 to get. So you're welcome, but please watch the entire broadcast all the way to the end, and once you've done this, then go back and listen to parts 1 through 18, and then sit back and understand where you may have a problem in your company. Also, I have other videos on my channel as well, which you will find absolutely illuminating, because it lets you look behind the curtain, and what's behind the curtain is usually not what you expect to be behind the curtain. Now, the objective of any TSCM program or service, it involves 4 cycles or 5 areas that we're going to go into each carefully. The first is the detection of the eavesdropping devices. It doesn't matter if they're legal or not legal. The forensic science of doing this does not delineate to do it one way for something that is legally installed and a different way for anything that is illegally installed. Everything is processed the exact same way, and we go where the science takes us. And there's a lot of science, a lot of engineering that's involved in the detection of bugging devices and eavesdropping activities. Then there's the nullification, the isolation, and the training. So we're going to look at each of these one at a time. Detection is all measures taken to detect technical surveillance devices, technical security hazards, and physical security weaknesses that would permit the technical or physical penetration of a facility. So what does that actually mean? Detection is when an engineer brings a bunch of laboratory-grade test equipment out to your facility, sets it up, and makes a whole bunch of measurements. And some of these measurements may be as simple as getting a ladder out and popping up ceiling tiles and exploring everything that's above the ceiling. Or it may be taking flashlights and looking at door latches and checking to see if the locksmith has done a good job or not. Or looking at the window gaskets to see if they're properly aligned and if anybody's been tampering with them. Or they may roll out laboratory-grade test equipment, maybe a couple of tons of it, set it up, and turn an area in nearby your office into what looks like some sort of a mad scientist laboratory with all kinds of spectrum analyzers and search receivers and computer-controlled radios and all kinds of other equipment, which is really fun to take a look at. But it's extremely sophisticated work. It's extremely technically demanding work, and it can be very physically demanding work as well. But detection is everything you do to detect an eavesdropping device or a weakness that an eavesdropping device could, or somebody could use that weakness to introduce an eavesdropping device, or where you've got security hazards of a technical nature. Detection must be done. This is key, a major key point. Detection and discovery must be done without the knowledge of the adversary. The adversary, of course, being the eavesdropper. We don't want the eavesdropper to know we're there. We don't want the eavesdropper to know that they've been caught. So we don't want the eavesdropper to know that we're working there. We don't want the eavesdropper to know that we've detected the bug. We don't want the eavesdropper to know that we've discovered the bug, because we want to quite literally keep the eavesdropper in the dark until we've completed the examination of an area and we get the appropriate authorities involved. So it's very important that these projects be done covertly. Now, nullification is a process of neutralizing or negating technical devices employed by making the placement of such device more difficult. So we are attempting to do things which impedes the spy from getting access to the areas that he's gotten access to. We don't, for example, not just want him in the boardroom in the president CEO's office. We don't want him within 50 or even 100 feet of where we have such concerns. We don't even want them in the executive hallway. We don't even want them within 150 feet of the executive hallway. So nullification means that you have things that you've put in place that make it virtually impossible for them to get into controlled areas, like the CEO's office. And if they do get into the CEO's office through some deceit and trickery, that their devices won't work, or that it makes it extremely difficult to install. I'll give you an example. After hours, it's not uncommon to assign one security guard to the executive corridor, and every 15 minutes they have to enter each office and run their flashlight around the room to make sure that there's nobody in the room after hours. And they have to hit that office every 15 minutes. So if you have 45 or 50 offices, that guard is going to have to open those doors, go in, spend 2 minutes or so inside each office, the bigger offices. He's going to have to look under the tables, look under the desks. He's going to need to check to make sure that the shades haven't been tampered with, and make sure that the lights are off and so on, and then leave and relock the door. So it's quite a bit of effort is spent, and quite a bit of budget has to be spent in the process of nullification of devices or negating what they put in there. Now, nullification also ensures that an area is protected with adequate physical construction and security measures, making the placement or use of a legal or illegal listening device ineffective. So this includes locks on doors, alarm sensors on doors and windows, video cameras out in the hallways, access control badges, but there are some physical things that we can do when we do construction that will extraordinarily interfere with what the spy is trying to do. It's not difficult to do these measures. They're a little expensive, and when I say a little expensive, it's not that big of an expense, but it really needs to be done by addressing physical construction, which means that when the spy puts his bug in and turns it on and he leaves the building, he can't hear it because you've done things that will make his listening devices ineffective, and you've done that by doing some physical construction things and implementing as well certain security measures. Nullification can be active or it can be passive, so let's look at that a little bit more. Active nullification measures is cover music system. It's not uncommon for sensitive areas to have music piped in to all of the rooms, but then this system can also be used to extract room audio from the room by using the music systems in reverse, by using them as a microphone. There's also jamming that can be done, but you have to be careful with the jamming that is not doing something that interferes with communications, because that's exceptionally illegal. There is, however, a means that a TSCM engineer will use to interfere with the specific bug, and they can nullify electronically the emissions coming out of the bug so they can make it disappear. And there's some interesting techniques that we use, that we get an operation signature of the bug, and then we simulate what that bug is doing. That way we can take the bug offline and the eavesdropper thinks his bug is still online. And then we can do phase jamming, where we neutralize the signal. We shield it off so that the signal from the bugging device is only going to the eavesdropper. And then we can either jam that or we can put bogus information out on that. But we want to create the same signal that the spy is expecting, but do it with our equipment so we can deactivate the bug and the spy thinks the bug is still online, which is really cool to do. And this is a type, and we can exploit. So exploitation, so we can leave the bug in place, or we can synthesize a bug with our equipment, then feed it the data that the spy wants so they can sell it to their handlers, but give it grossly incorrect information. The other thing of active nullification is the actual removal of the device, which nullifies it. It's not there, it's not functioning anymore, but sometimes it's more profitable to leave it there so you can exploit it. If you're going to leave it there so it can be exploited, you need to consult a firm like us, because you need professional assistance to do this and pull it off in a profitable manner. If you don't do it properly, it's going to end up hurting you. So to do it and do it right, you need to engage a private sector outside TSCM person who can advise senior leadership how to do this and do it in a way that will help the company. Passive nullification is construction elements such as extra stable sheetrock, sound insulation. This can be baffles, it can be foam, it can be spacers or grommets. It can be just exceptionally dense walls. Solid concrete walls work extraordinarily well, but you do need to treat them with some sort of a clad product to limit vibrations getting to it, or to dissipate the vibrations so that you don't get clean vibrations inside of the concrete. So we do things to the face of the concrete. I personally prefer a cladding that we attach to the concrete, which does a fantastic job mounted on concrete. There's also shielding, which is basically you're putting copper or mylar or something which will reflect radio signals back into an area and keep others out of an area. And we typically combine shielding with sound insulation. And if you do have shielding, you do have to have outstandingly good grounding. And the better grounded your electronic equipment is, the more safe and secure it will be. Now, isolation is all measures used to deter or make extremely difficult the introduction of any eavesdropping device. Isolation is, as we'll see in a moment, is things done to slow the spy down and to make the spy's life very difficult and to make the spy's enterprise exceptionally unprofitable. And it's not that hard to do, but you really need to engage outside experts in this if you're going to start down this road. For places such as classified facilities, or called SCIFs, the construction and the isolation used for those are very special. They're very specific to those types of areas. For example, within the government, we have SCIF, or we call them bubbles. We have black rooms, security halls, conference rooms, which are classified conference rooms, and exclusion areas. And what that means is you can't bring your cell phone into the room. You can't bring your iPad in the room. You can't bring your tablet in the room. If you have an electronic calculator, you can't bring it in the room. In extraordinarily good facilities, they will even have an exclusion zone with a medical check-in, so that people who wear hearing aids or insulin pumps will go to the medical check-in, and a medical person will take the glucose injection system off them and replace it with one that they can use inside the exclusion zone. And then after everything is done, then they get their original insulin pump back. This also applies to people who use hearing aids. The hearing aids will be taken out and they'll be swapped in the medical room for ones that can be used inside the exclusion area. Or people who have other types of electronic devices, not implanted on them, but things that are in them, like pacemakers or neurostimulators. Those are not taken out, but things that are external to the body and which can be taken out easily will be taken out. Now, in a case of implanted electronic devices, then you'll still go to the medical room, and then in the medical room there'll be a TSCM team that will scan the device that you have implanted, and unfortunately they have to get access to bare skin to do this, but they will check the pacemaker, they'll check the neurostim, they'll check other implants that have electronics in them to make sure that they're the same ones that you're supposed to have and that nobody has tampered with them. Because a very classic way to eavesdrop a classified area is to bug the hearing aids, where literally their hearing aid is a bugging device that the wearer does not know is a bugging device, or an insulin pump. It's been a real big problem with some of the foreign enemies of the United States selling insulin pumps, providing insulin pumps that are actually bugged to people who are going into top secret areas. And insulin pumps can hold astronomical amounts of audio, as well as very sophisticated video surveillance systems. So just take a look at your insulin pump and go, I think I need one for work and one not for work. So wear one to the office And when you go into an exclusion area, change your pumps and leave one pump in medical and then use the other pump. Now, I realize it's a real hassle to do that, but if you're trying to protect classified materials, you need to work with your medical people to make sure that accommodations are made for you to swap out your devices. Implanted devices, since they can't be removed, they do need to be electronically checked to see if they're materially changed in how they're supposed to do things. And that's an entirely separate video, and you can look for that video later, where I do talk about cases of insulin pumps being bugged and hearing aids being bugged and very types of external medical things being bugged. One of my favorite are the oxygen tanks that are actually bugged and have multiple video cameras in them, so they get a 360-degree sphere of every place they walk through, and extremely intense inspection with hands will not detect these bugged oxygen generators. We'll talk about some of those cases later. Just be patient with what I'm presenting. Hang in there, we're almost done. Isolation also includes exclusion or close control of unauthorized people. Most commonly, this is a visitor escort program. We also have construction escort programs. We'll also have what we call trades escort programs, which is tradesmen like electricians, HVAC, mechanical engineering, professional engineering, the plumbers. They all have to have escort, and typically you want one escort person per visitor. So if a group of 5 electricians come into work, you need to have 5 or 6 escorts. So each person is never allowed to be out of the physical view of the escort. It actually works extraordinarily well. It's also very often completely not run properly at a lot of companies. If you want to learn how to run these escort programs properly and get the proper, how it's done the right way, check out some of my other videos. If it's not up right now, it will be up. Just be patient, because there's a lot of stuff that's scheduled to drop and go live on a semi-random schedule, but the material presented is just going to get better and better and better. So just keep an eye on things. Isolation is also designed to reduce the threat of technical eavesdropping, which that's kind of an understatement. It may also involve a single room or an entire building. So you may choose just to make the board room and the president CEO's room, put that with isolation, have special audio masking, have special wall insulation, have acoustic absorption, and just make concrete walls and not screw stud walls. Put area rugs out, put padding under the area rugs, put cladding underneath all the conference tables so that sound doesn't bounce off the bottom of the conference room tables. But the way to do isolation is a whole video in and of itself, and watch for it later. Training is one of the most important parts of any TSCM program, but it's not as important to get everybody into the same TSCM program for training. The training needs to be delivered to certain levels of employees, and you need to get everybody on that level in the entire company or government enterprise. They need one type of training. Their subordinates need a different kind of training. The line personnel, they need a different type of training, and everybody needs to be trained suited for their position in the organization. So you might have 3, you might have 5, you might have 7 levels of training, but it's different for each. It's different, not so much different for each employee, but for each position, it's different. So all of the executive vice presidents, they get one class. The secretarial staff, they get a different class. All of your most senior uh, uh, department supervisors, they get their own class. And all your senior executives, they get a whole class, but their class is going to contain a lot more management oriented and less technical oriented training. But training is key, especially with people in sensitive positions. I would like to remind you that an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. When it comes to training, this is key. It's absolutely key. A little bit of training does a huge amount of damage control later on down the line, and training is always an investment. It's never an expense. The more training you give your people, it doesn't matter if it's security training, technical training, business training, public speaking training, every penny you spend on training is an asset to the company, assuming that employee stays with your company. So you want to make your company a lot of money and drastically increase gross profit and drastically increase net profits. Spend a lot of money on training for your executives, for your people, for your secretaries, everybody in the company. You just can't get them enough training, and all that training pays off marvelously later on down the line. It might take you some time to realize your investment, but the best investment that your company can make, other than in buying assets for the company, is in training. Some of it with TSCM, some of it in other topics, some of it in how to do Word documents or spreadsheets, or any type of training that connects to your company. Make your company worth more. So the more education your employees get, the more valuable your company becomes. And if you go to a venture capitalist and you explain that employees who've been with our company for 5 years, on average, we've paid for 1 full year of training during that 1 year period. That's quite nice. What the investors want to hear is that an employee worked for your company for 5 years and spent 2 years of that in training, in classroom training, not learning on the job. That makes your company worth a lot more. So you always want to look at education that is being brought to the company. So when somebody submits their transcripts to the company, that's entered into the computer, how many credits they come to the company with. And then you look at all their other transcripts, and the bigger that combined number, the more they're worth to your company. So it's not so much the degrees that have immediate value to a company, but it's the number of college credits or semester hours or quarter hours, or however it's dealt with. Then you have a second column of professional training, like how to run Excel, how to understand TSCM and isolation. So that's professional training. And then there's on-the-job training, which is column number 3. But column number 1 and column number 2 is what investors want to look at. That's actually what the bank wants to look at. And when you try to get federal grant money, those first 2 numbers is what's going to get you your grant, or not get you your grant if you paid attention or not. So pay attention and understand there's a tremendous amount of money to be made by getting your people trained and understanding the concept of an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Training is a vital part of any TSCM program. The reason it is vital is it gets personnel to stay alert to everyday things, unusual conditions, changes in their areas, unsolicited repairs, and I've used this phrase in other videos. They need to know what SPORE looks like, specific to buggings, burglaries, and break-ins. And they can't learn that with some video on the internet. They need somebody to physically come in, put it in front of them on their desks, in their work areas, and then walk around their work areas and demonstrate what to look at. For example, How many times have you had an employee in your company mention that over the weekend somebody lifted the ceiling tile over their desk, and they can tell because of the ceiling tile spore on their desk, on their chair, and on their floor, or they've noticed that there's a new pile of sheetrock dust on the baseboards of their office in one little area, and there's a new picture hanging on the wall that you know nothing of. Well, they may have just found a covert video camera and a eavesdropper who was sloppy in cleaning up the dust that fell on the baseboard. And I've got video and specific examples that you'll be seeing shortly in other videos. So keep on this series, because we're just getting this baby taken off. So we're on the runway, and we're about to lift off, and I'm just getting started. You better hold on to your hats, because the next few videos is really going to rock your world. I promise. Training takes multiple forms. The first is a threat briefing. This is done in person only. This is where you have a course. Equipment and toys are brought out and shown in a classroom environment, usually a one-day session that's usually exceptionally entertained. And if I do it, it's extremely well catered. So if you want to have a really memorable and thoroughly enjoyed course, have us come in and do a threat briefing. Now, we also have on-site training, which is strictly informal. It's a lot of walking around the workspace, pointing out things for employees to look for. This is usually a 2 to 4 hour walkabout. And then security bulletins is what's used to glue all of this together. Those bulletins come out either to just the security department, or these bulletins come out to the entire company, or you give us the back page of your weekly or monthly newsletter, and we write about specific problems that we found, and explain to people how to find those in other company areas, or what to keep an eye on. So it can be quite useful to have a security bulletin or just the back page of your newsletter. We've done many of these, and I'm happy to do them. I charge a little bit to do them, but it's cheaper than your employees not finding things, which could quite literally cost you your company in a way you're not expecting. Thank you for your time for watching this video. There's plenty of other videos around on this channel, and it can take many days to get through even a fourth of them. So good luck. Thank you very much, and I look forward to you watching some of my other videos. Have a good day, and be careful out there. Be very careful out there. There are spies who want your secrets, and they will get your secrets if you are not vigilant. And if you're really vigilant, contact us, because there's a lot more that we can do in person. And look at the other videos, and you'll see why we are the best, hands down. Take care.